Paula Broadwell. Well, today, the Washington Post on the front page reports on another scandal, albeit this one not involving sex. It has to do with the incredible access some friends of his were given while Petreaus was running the war in Afghanistan. The friends were two civilians, Fred and Kimberly Kagan, prominent neoconservative analysts. They were provided desks, email access, and top security clearance to pour through intelligence reports. According to the Post, the four-star general made the Kagans de facto senior advisors, a status that afforded them numerous private meetings in his office, priority travel across the war zone, and the ability to read highly secretive transcripts of intercepted Taliban communications. Even Fred Kagan acknowledged to the Post the arrangement was, quote, strange and uncomfortable at times. Rajiv Chandrasekaran wrote in today's story in the Post, and David Korn is the Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones, and of course an MSNBC political analyst. Rajiv, thanks for that great report. I love it when you make news. Holy cow, I was about to say when I read the Post front page today. As a student, in a very negative way, of the Iraq war, who's always suspected anybody who pushed that war was pushing an agenda that wasn't necessarily for a good cause, the Kagans, Robert Kagan, Fred Kagan, Kimberly Kagan, were prominently featured on your newspaper all the time pushing the latest neocon war. Now we find out they're in bed with General Petreaus, who reports to Commander-in-Chief Barack Obama. How did they get inside when they were from the other side ideologically?
Because, Chris, four-star generals have a lot of leeway when they're out halfway around the world. Look, this arrangement wasn't well known at the White House, at the Pentagon, by senior officials of the Obama administration. Certainly, if they knew, they would have objected. The extraordinary access that the Kagans got. Petreaus was able to do much of this just because he was the general and managed to get what I understand his lawyers to sign off on the arrangement, which, you know, they got these desks, they got the security clearance, they traveled around the war zone, they got FaceTime with him regularly, very influential folks there.
Who's Petreaus of? Who is he of? Well, who are his people? Is he part of the neocon crowd? Is he one of them? Those people that pushed this into their, let's put it this way, heavily encouraged the war in Iraq? Or is he part of the American, the more progressive stream of the presidents, which is very skeptical about these foreign interventions? Which world does he come? Is Petreaus part of them, part of the political other side, if you will?
Well, I don't think Petreaus neatly fits in the world of the neocons, but he certainly is an individual who believes in the transformative power of the military. The Kagans were very helpful to him with the intellectual architecture of the surge in Iraq. They supported more forces in Afghanistan, which is where Petreaus was, they helped him shore up some of his bona fides with Republicans on Capitol Hill, who by this point were starting to get new doubts about the war in Afghanistan.
I don't mind him playing a liaison role, but I wonder about this advisory role. Let's go to David Korn, who shares my views about this thing. It seems to me that you have a very interesting situation. I'm trying to think of a parallel, but I can't think of one, where people from the other ideological wing or spectrum of the country have found their way into a controlling situation on a war front.
Well, what they had, you have these two think tankers. They're not in the military.
American Enterprise, senior fellows.
Senior fellows. They burrow their way in. Neocons tend to be very good at burrowing. They burrow their way in, and they create, as Rajiv's wonderful piece, details, lots of confusion in the chain of command. People don't know how to relate to them. Are they spies for Petreaus? Are they conveying orders from Petreaus? And how did this come to be? It gets to sort of the big issue that we talked about earlier this year, which is David Petreaus' judgment. Because he was so lionized and almost worshipped as America's greatest general since Washington, he seemed to be able to feel he could get away with things, and he got into that scandal with Paula Broadwell, and then this happens obviously before that, but he feels he has a license to do things that other generals couldn't.
Let's get to the heart of it. This surge strategy, which worked in Iraq, I'm told, people say it, that's conventional wisdom, applied then to Afghanistan. How were the Kagans involved with that whole strategy?
The Kagans pushed the surge strategy in op-eds in my newspaper and other newspapers. They were vocal proponents for it, and then they were proponents for taking a much tougher line against various Taliban factions. In fact, the irony here is that while David Petreaus was talking up a good game on counterinsurgency, on using troops to protect civilian populations in Afghanistan, what the Kagans were lobbying to do was to use more of those troops to conduct strikes against Taliban infiltration lines from Pakistan.
Thank you. By the way, your story met this. We'll do more on this later. We got to go tonight, but I want to salute you, Rajiv, because your story met the test of Ben Bradley's. He said, I want to pick up the newspaper and say, holy, I can't use the word here, holy. And when you say that, you know you got something. This story, I want everybody tonight, go back and look it up on Google or whatever else. Study this story. This is a story of penetration that ought to be understood. Rajiv Chandrasekharan, thank you much for joining us.